that Los Angeles sunshine coming through.
Please stand by. Prime Video and Westworld director Jonathan Nolan invite you to Fallout.
After 200 years, we don't know much about what's up there. Violence, desperation, lawlessness.
Everyone wants to save the world, they just disagree on how.
We're gonna get across that wasteland, and we're gonna do it together.
Fallout. All episodes available now on Prime Video.
Support for this episode comes from Modern Football Technology. Modern Football Technology provides real-time opponent tendencies and self-scout while eliminating manual data entry into Huddle, DV Sport, and Exos. If you're tired of tools that are time-consuming to learn and perform inconsistently at best, then we recommend Modern Football for a fresh perspective. Schedule a demo today at teammofo.com to see a battle-tested tool that's proven to perform and deliver value. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code CC10 to receive 10% off your first year. And listen to our recent episode featuring Folsom High School defensive coordinator Jordan Ersick to learn more about how the 2023 California State Champion uses modern football to dominate their opponents.
I'm responsible, but you're accountable. And that's what I used to tell the players. I'm responsible for you guys, but you're accountable. And so I made them become coaches. I made them teach in the classroom. And that's what made it so unique.
Mike Waufle is a retired NFL defensive line coach. He most recently served as the defensive line coach for the Buffalo Bills. He also served as the line coach for the Oakland Raiders from 1998 to 2003 and coached in Super Bowl XXXVII. He was defensive line coach for the New York Giants from 2004 to 2009, and he won Super Bowl XLII in 2007. In that game, the defensive line's performance is generally credited with being a decisive factor. He returned to the Raiders in 2010 and 11, and from 2012 to 16, he was the defensive line coach for the Rams under Jeff Fisher. He coached the Buffalo Bills defensive line in 2017. In this segment from the 2022 C.O.O.L Clinic, he shares how his classroom was unique and then goes into what he says is the most important part of playing defensive line, the get-off. And he has 6 components which he goes into, which they repped every single day. While he focuses his presentation on defensive line play, there's a lot to learn here about teaching your players, regardless of the position, in how to master their technique. The entire talk is available on CoachTube, and the link in the show notes will give you 25% off. It's definitely worth adding to your library. The 2023 C.O.O.L Clinic has been launched. Be sure to take advantage of early bird savings by going to C.O.O.L 2023 at coachesclinic.com. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes.
A lot of guys from every era that I coached at called me up and said, you know what, coach, the thing we miss the most is the classroom. And I had a unique classroom. And I wanted to pass that on to you first because, yes, we're going to talk technique and all that. But the classroom was different because of these 3 things. On every blackboard, I had 1837 written on the board. And what that is that Ralph Waldo Emerson said, in 1837 that it's very difficult to be simple enough to be good. We deal with athletes. Athletes need to perform. They got to have it in their brain so they can go at a high level. And one of the next things that I had on the board was spaced repetitions, doing the same thing over and over and over again. Spaced repetitions will equal habits. Then habits equals instincts. And when they get close to being an instinctive player, now winning comes about. And winning comes out at a high percentage once you get to that level. And the other thing I had on there was from Sun Tzu: if you know thy enemy and you know thyself, you shall not fear the results of 1,000 battles. And I used to have the whole classroom recite that all the time. And what I did in that classroom, I learned when I was in New York, I met with Mayor Giuliani. He says, I have a sign on my desk, Mike, that says, I'm responsible, but you're accountable. And that's what I used to tell the players. I'm responsible for you guys, but you're accountable. And so I made them become coaches. I made them teach in the classroom. And that's what made it so unique. When I first got to the Rams, I had the guys on the board. I had really, really smart guys at the Giants, with Strahan, Umanura, Tuck, and all that group. They all had test scores. In fact, the quarterback's test score, had the highest Wonderlic average, because Eli almost aced it, Eli Manning. And then the quarterbacks were number one, but the defensive line on the entire team was number two as far as intelligence. And this is really where I started it at. We won the Super Bowl there and beat Tom Brady, undefeated New England Patriots. But that's just where I started teaching it that way in the classroom, where they took ownership. And I would just go around the room and I'd say, okay, Michael, you're up. All right. He had to identify the entire formation. He had to identify any motions. He had to identify the offensive play, and they had to coach every single guy on the defensive line. Did it take some time? Yes. But it was a lot of fun because anytime they screwed up, we had open season. You could punk them any way you wanted to. And so the guys loved it, and so there was a lot of open verbalization there, but there was an awful lot of learning going on at the same time. And so it was, I wanted to just pass that on because it was a very, very, very productive classroom environment, and the guys loved it. The one thing I did come up with an offensive formation identification form is that the offensive line and the quarterback, whether he's behind the center or in shotgun, are going to always be there. I mean, there's a tackle over now and then, but for the most part, okay, those 6 out of the 11 on offense are always going to be there. And so how I did for formation identification is I said, find the basketball team. Find the basketball team, okay? Because 5 left over, okay? The basketball team always ends with the end of the alphabet, XYZ. XYZ is the beginning of the basketball team, okay? And then I put an R on there for the running back. So every offensive formation, whether it was 21 personnel, it was 12 personnel, 11 personnel, 10 personnel, you had to do some substitution, 22 personnel, you had to do an extra substitution. But for the most part, X, Y, Z, R were always there. So if it was 21 personnel, okay, they get up on the board and write X, Y, Z, and R on the board on that formation. And then they had to do the location of the fullback, okay? So the F would go up there. It was 12 personnel. It would be X, Y, Z, R. Then you had the H back, the second tight end. If it was 11 personnel, it'd be X, Y, Z, R, and then W for the extra wide receiver or whatever, however you did it. But it's fast, it's furious. The other thing that I taught about formations was this. If it's 2 backs, the first thing that comes out of your mouth is I. Well, then it's either I near or I far, or very rare split backs. But the first thing that comes out of your mouth is I. So that when they came out with the 2 backs. And the other thing that I taught them in that classroom, taught Japanese business techniques. Japanese business techniques were you take the information in, you keep your mouth shut, and when you speak, you sound like an intellectual. And it doesn't matter. Everybody had all kinds of backgrounds as defensive linemen, but I wanted them to be professional. And there was no oohs, there was no ahs, there was no okays. When you spoke, you gathered your thoughts. You just didn't have to say an awful lot, kept it simple, but you were able to present yourself that way. And then a funny story, William Hayes I asked them a question, and it was, after 45 seconds, the guys were humming a Jeopardy song. And then I go, William, and he goes, Japanese business techniques, coach, give me the time, and we did, but it was hilarious. But it's such a good way of giving them confidence. And I found that the confidence level for those down the line guys that weren't the number one draft choices, that were the free agents, and their intelligence level in the whole room rose, that the game became simpler to them. It became slower to them, not faster. They were able to identify the game slowed down because of their knowledge, and they're able to control it, much better. On offense, we know where and when the ball is, we know where it's going, and we know when. On defense, it's all reaction. The big thing is seeing that big picture made a huge difference in the classroom. The next thing I always wanted to teach, and that's what I'm going to do today, is the whys. And I've been trying to find it, and I just haven't been able to find the gentleman. He was a defense coordinator, but he's a defensive back coach at Temple for Bruce Arians back in the mid 80s. And he was an offense-defense camp out in Roanoke Park, when they had it out in north of San Francisco. And he told me, he says, Mike, he goes, it's very important, like when you teach, that you teach the whys. Why are you doing it? If they understand the whys, then it becomes part of them. And so to begin my presentation technically, or the technical part of it, it is, I want to say one thing else right there. For the one thing else about the before I go on, okay? This is very important. For the rest of your teaching career, for the rest of your career, if the two backs in the backfield, it's two backs. That's a no-brainer. But if there's one back in the backfield, it's either 2x2 or it is 3x1, no matter what, 2x2 or 3x1 within the formation. I used to tell the players, I said, look to your right, see how many receivers are out there. If it was one, obviously it's 3x1. I looked out there and it was two, no brainer, it's 2x2. The speed of the identification of the formations, and then the probabilities, okay, we played the percentages of what the play is going to be, really help the situation. I think you can do the math on that one and figure it out. Now back to the presentation, okay? So the most important concept in defensive line play is get off. Why? Because you need to close the distance between yourself and the blocker. Now, I had the opportunity to talk with two of the fearsome foursomes. I had the opportunity to talk to the third one, and I didn't. I was dumb, okay, that I didn't. Merlin Olsen obviously played at Utah State, and he was the one I didn't spend a lot of time with researching, but he was the brains of the outfit, okay? When I talked to Rosie Greer and I talked to Deacon Jones, and then obviously Merlin passed it on to Jack Youngblood. Jack Youngblood was my assistant at the Rams, and he used to come and hang out with us. It was great. But some of these principles were taught to me and learned from that fearsome foursome unit. And they were obviously who they were. They said, right now, you got to close the distance, all right, between the blocker. The part of that whole situation obviously has to be done with get off. I'm going to give you 6 things right now that I did for get off. And I started the day with get off every single day. Now, I had a stick ball with a ball on it, but the reason I did that is so I could stand up and I could observe and I could see as far as alignments and what they're looking at. But the number one thing I would say is eyes. Eyes. In the classroom, I tested them. I tested them to find out what their dominant eye was, okay? So if you just take your fingers like this and you make a little diamond shape, all right? You can see the diamond shape, kind of get it in there, a little diamond shape at the end of your fingers right there. And then you hold that out in front of yourself and between your eyes, hold it right out in the middle of your nose, but extend your arms away from your body. And you get that diamond shape and you fixate something in the middle of that diamond. And then you close your right eye, and then your left eye is looking through there, okay? And then you close your left eye, and then whatever object you were looking at through the middle of that diamond is your dominant eye. And I found it was funny, but over the years, most defensive linemen are left eye dominant. I'm left eye dominant, but it's kind of funny of that particular trait. It's just charting. But I would say eyes, and I would want them to focus with their dominant eye. That's all they're thinking about is their dominant eye. Okay, so they're not just doing get offs. Just you're taking a body part and you're focusing on it. And So that with the dominant eye, okay, I would want them to look at the football, which is the back tip of the football. So I got a football around here somewhere. Got a wounded warrior football right here. Okay, so if you look at this right here, so if this part of the football is going towards the quarterback right here, that end, that's what I call the back tip of the football. And they would take their eyes and see as little as possible and look at that back tip of the football with their eyes, so with that eye, just see little. And so the whole thing with seeing little like that, if you're in an exercise physiology lab, which is my background, I was more as an exercise physiologist than a football coach. That's what turned me on. That's why I stayed on the defensive line. I had my little Marine Corps recon unit. I had my little Navy SEAL unit. Okay, a bunch of badasses, and I enjoyed. I couldn't pull myself out of that classroom, but most of the things that I did were with pure body mechanics. With the eyes now, if you're a free safety and you're looking at the entire formation, all right, and you're seeing it 3 by 1 or 2 by 2 if it's one back or two backs, and you find the two side with the strength of the formation. But if you're looking at it, your reaction time is a lot slower than if you're looking at this back tip of the football zeroed in. Your reaction time will be much quicker the less you see. The less you see, the quicker you get off. It was so necessary for them to be able to improve their get off by training their vision. Eyes are everything for defense. It's the reaction time. You need to train their eyes. Eyes are everything on defense because of reaction. The second thing that I had was the power foot. Okay, so why did I call it the power foot? Well, power in the exercise physiology lab, it's force times velocity. Force is strength, velocity is speed. Power is force times velocity. So when you talk about power, all I do is I think about the power clean. The power clean, the force, the power comes through the balls of the feet. And it comes up, all that energy comes up through the entire body, from the balls of the feet to be able to get that weight, to be able to rack it, and up by your shoulders, to be able to rack it, through the strength and the speed of the movement of that bar at the exact same time. So when I'm talking about the power foot, when you're in your stance, it is the up foot in your stance. The up foot, the foot that you push off with when you're running the 100 meters or the 40-yard dash. It's that foot. And what you do mentally when it's the next repetitions where we get off on the football, I say power foot, power foot. They generate power mentally, no different than doing a power clean on the ball of the foot, on the up foot in their stance, the power foot, the power foot. That's the next focus of get off. Get off's pretty complicated with me. It's very important. Now, the next one is the first step. The first step has to come towards the down hand in the stance. That first step comes towards the down hand. So if you step in the middle of your stance, you're not in a very good position to play ball. If you step out wider than your hand, you're not in a good position. But if you step towards your hand, you're no different than a golfer. You're no different than a shortstop. You're no different than a point guard. You're in a great athletic position, a great athletic base, so that you can use the big muscles in your body to be able to get your job done. So that first step was so important that they needed to, in their mind, to have that foot go right towards their hand, and they could feel that athletic base underneath their body. So the next 2 reps are on the 5th and 6th reps of get off. It's first step towards your hand, towards your hand, towards your hand. The 4th segment of get off is gain green grass. They had so much fun. I had these, I worked in a 10-yard area only with get off, but they had so much fun racing for 5 yards, and I'd video it. And it gain green grass. When I say gain green grass, it was amazing how they could reach with their feet and reach with their feet. It was just amazing how they're able to train their legs to eat up grass on that football field and close the distance between themselves and the blocker, between themselves and the running back, between themselves and the quarterback. It's very important for them to gain green grass, but you have to train it. You have to train it, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference as a sprinter. Everybody's fast, everybody's quick in the National Football League, but this just enhances. They're God's gifts to another level. The next phase is run hands. John Ferrella, he coached in the league a little bit. He's in Cleveland, Ohio, coaching at a Christian school right now, and very proud of him. But when he used to get off, and I was at the Raiders, and he used to take his hands right now and cross his thumbs. See, cross the thumbs right there. He'd come up to bam, have his hands up right now and cross the thumbs. Well, two things happen when you cross the thumbs. Everybody, of course, the offensive line coaches, you want to keep your hands nice and tight. But when you come up and you cross your thumbs as quickly as you possibly can, you're focusing on keeping those hands tight. But cross thumbs, it's almost like a sight on a rifle right there when you look at it right there. But you see that cross thumbs right now, it's an emphasis. So you're getting off just like you are. You're getting off with your eyes, power foot, your first step, and then sudden, bam, you're crossing your thumbs. And they have to hold those arms out extended for 5 yards. Just as an emphasis. It looks kind of stupid, but at the same time, it's an emphasis. So you're thinking about your get off, but you're also thinking about crossing your thumbs and having your hands in great position, being able to control the blocker. You'll see how this all folds into the next part of it. All right. So now you go from the cross thumbs. Now, the other thing is this. If I take my hand right here and I have my thumb up, my bones and everything is aligned with this arm, and everything is lined in a power position. As I turn my elbow out like this, and I know a lot of pass blocking, of course, obviously you're there, but I am not as strong towards the midline of the body with my thumb like this. But as soon as I turn my thumb up, the strength levels increase because of the alignment of the bones in the body. Take it for what it is. See if you can do something with it. But it works good for defensive line play. And then the next thing that I did, the last step of get-offs, remember we start out with eyes. I went to power foot, first step. Fourth thing was gain green grass. Fifth thing was run hands. Then it was rush hands. And that's what part of this pass rush presentation. The rush hands I'm going to get into later on. But the coolest thing was as they came off and they got off out of their stances right there, everything was on air as far as the rush hands. I would give them the rush and they had to perform it on air at 100 miles an hour. And Pat Hill, he was a great offensive line coach, ended up being the head coach at Fresno State. He was the offensive line coach when I coached at Fresno State. And Pat, I used to go, what's it? That's how fast I wanted them to perform it. And he goes, why don't you just say 12? It would be more efficient for how quick you want those guys to perform their technique. But that's what they would do. They get off on the football for that 5 yards, man, and they're moving. They look like martial artists, gaining green grass, performing the technique on air. And that last phase, again, in the get off was rush hands. So eyes, power foot, first step, gain green grass, run hands, rush hands. So now you get 12, and I did rush hands. We go through all the rushes. So it's anywhere, it goes from really around 14 to 16 repetitions of get off. And it's not just get off. You're not just coming off the ball. You're developing these mental patterns of spaced repetitions. You're developing those habits. You're developing the instincts in their bodies to be able to help the reaction time. Very important. If I was to go back today, Marinelli used to put us through on that Gilman sled. I used to do that thing, man. I saw guys drop on the grass, and the grass was up around their ears because they were sucking for air. He would try to kill us on that Gilman sled. We did the Gilman sled forever. I did it all the way up to the Bills, and I started feeling it. I started telling the players, this is the way it is. It's bone on bone. It's flesh on flesh. If I was to go back today, I wouldn't have any equipment. I say, tough. You signed up for this. Bone on bone, flesh on flesh. There's not enough time with all the NCAA rules. There's not enough time in high school. There's not enough time in the National Football League anymore to be able to get the number of repetitions that are needed to be able to master this technique. So the more you go bone on bone, flesh on flesh, the better it is. And I just apologize, that's just the way it is. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be full speed. I used to call it MMT, Master My Technique. Okay, Aaron Donald still does this. He's taught the Rams guys, they've done it for years. Master my technique. I spoke with Robert Quinn before the season. I said, Robert, I've seen your pass rush just slip away. You were a great pass rusher at the Rams. Osi Umenyiora was the absolute most beautiful right end as far as technique. I said, you were close to Osi. I said, you're so far away from where you were at. You need to go back to MMT. And he did. And they ended up, he did. That's all he did. That's all he did this season. He went back to going through slow-mo. And this is a great time when you have special teams. It's great pre-practice and a great post-practice thing, okay, that you can have. And anytime in practice, when the offense is up, you can be doing MMT in slow-mo, doing the technique over and over and over again. And I used to look over there and I'd see Chris Long and William Hayes, and they're over there visiting. And I said, gentlemen, do you have 1,000 reps yet? Obviously not. Okay. And I said, well, when you get 1,000 reps, let me know. There's not enough time in a day. There's not enough time to develop these mental patterns. I'm 67 years old. My hands are as quick as a cat because I've been boxing my entire life. I box once a week. Okay. And I go through the same mental patterns, the same patterns that Mike Tyson was taught from Castellano. I go through the punch patterns of 1 and 2 are the hook. They're the knockout punches, really, to cross the jaw. Okay, 3, 4 are the uppercuts. 5 and 6 are the body, and then the 7 is a jab, and the 8 is a cross. Man. Okay, so like 2 jabs right there. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I go through all kinds of combinations. My favorite punch combination is 8, 3, 2. All right, which is a jab. It's a jab cross with an uppercut. All right, with a hook. But these mental patterns are no different. No different. If you were to look at me doing that stuff at 67 years old and see the quickness in my hands, you'd be impressed. But all it is years and years and years of training, And I'm not giving into that old man shit either, okay? But it's years and years of training, okay, and being able to develop those mental patterns. And these mental patterns, so important. I don't care how many times you say eyes. I don't care how many times you say gain green grass. I don't care how many times you say run hands. They need to do that over and over and over again.
As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser. Thank you again for listening to the Coach and Coordinator podcast. The entire talk from Coach Waufle from the 2022 clinic is available on CoachTube. The link in the show notes will get you 25% off. Also, be sure to register for the 2023 C.O.O.L clinic at C.O.O.L 2023, coachesclinic.com, and take advantage of early bird savings. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.